Stars Witching Hour. I'm your host and head witch, Miss Solaris BlueRaven, at the helm this evening. I want to give a shout-out to everybody at Revolution Radio, staff, producers, listeners, chat room, and thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And we are 100% listener-supported. So if you like what you're hearing, please click on the donate button. We appreciate your support and thank you for any contribution you can make to this excellent station. And I also would like to thank everybody for contributing this month. It looks like we're doing really well. So I want to thank you all for pitching in and helping us out here at the station. We certainly appreciate it here at Revolution Radio, so thank you very much for doing that. And you are listening to Studio A. And my special guest this evening is Joanne Richards. And Joanne has been on my show before. I have a great deal of respect for Joanne. She's a spirit of unique strength and wisdom, and I'm honored to have her back with me this evening. And Joanne Richards is the Executive Director of Educational Nonprofit Earth Defense Headquarters. Her husband, Mark Richards, and his father, Ellis Loyd Richards, were involved with top-level military intelligence operations since World War II. Many of these operations included on-world and off-world contact and battles with various alien species. Mark's family history includes some very interesting bloodlines and personal connections. Both of his grandfathers worked with Nikola Tesla. Grandfather Richards worked on the Manhattan Project. Mark's father spent summers with Tesla, Goddard, and Hubble. Both he and Mark were involved with top-secret things since they were teens. It runs in their family. How cool is that? And Joanne has been a guest on several radio and TV shows, including the Fenton Perspective, Quantum Leap, Ohio Exopolitics, Through the Keyhole with Karyn Dolan, Rob Simone, Light of Day, Sedona Lights, Vortex Network News, Cosmic Connections, Out There TV, and is featured in Ed Grimsley's video. She has given presentations at Probe UK conferences in October 2007 and 2011, at Ed Grimsley's Skywatch Conference in May 2009, Philadelphia in April of 2010, the 2012 Summit in May 2012, the 2012 Super Soldier Summit in June of 2012, the NorCal MUFON Barbecue in July of 2012, and the Alchemy event in November 2012. And she has been interviewed by Project Camelot in June of 2012. And I know she has other dates that are more recent, and I don't have those available right this second. And Joanne speaks about her knowledge of military operations and meetings that these men were involved with. She shares information about numerous alien species, the secret space fleet, and battles with aliens on and off-world. In 1984, Mark was falsely convicted of a murder and has been incarcerated ever since. The family now believes it was to keep him quiet about what he knows and to keep him from fighting the New World Order. And Joanne has an incredible story to tell about human ET contact. Her website is www.edhca.org. And Joanne also has some books that she's getting ready to release soon, so we'll be discussing that as well. And please welcome Joanne to the show this evening. Hi, Joanne.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And it's great to have you on, so thanks for hopping on board here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure, my honor. And like I said before, I'm so impressed with your work and your presentations. They're just incredible. So thank you so much. And I do want to share a lot of that information tonight if we can run through some stuff, especially about the Philadelphia experiment. But first, I want to talk about what you've been up to and the books you're writing.
Okay. Well, number one, I'm not writing them. Mark is.
Okay.
but it's a joint effort because I do help him with the research, so that's good. It's a joint project. One of them is it's a report I've had out for several years called The Battle of Vesta, but I'm converting it into a real print book soon. And it is about a space mission that he and his father were involved with in the fall of 1979, August of 79. And they were called to space to kind of monitor or, be a presence for an alien conference that was going to be happening out near the asteroid Vesta, where the Nordics, a particular species of Nordics, had a base. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so on the way, Mark's ship and crew have a first contact with a wonderful cat species that I love to talk about. And they also learned of a plan to be ambushed. No, I'm backing up. They learned of a plan, like an invasion plan from one insectoid species that was, planning to wreak havoc. And they actually ambushed the Nordic base and we're trying to take over the super cannon weapons that are up there. And our space fleet got there in time to engage in a space battle that's pretty hairy sounding. And they never last super long. It's over pretty fast, but it's one of those missions where my husband was wounded once again. And it was like one of the first things I ever read that he wrote that really opened my eyes to what he actually used to do for the military. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty fascinating, and it's, on an 8.5 by 11 page, it's 300 and some odd pages, so it'll probably be smaller than, probably be more than that when it's, like down to a 5x7 or something, whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be cool, because that's an actual space battle. It talks about navigating in space and talks about the cat species, and you get a brief insight into the raptor species and the insect species called the trogs, who are awful. And so it brings up several species, right off the bat. So that's pretty cool. And you also learn that, like back then, some of the astronauts who were like new astronauts then went on to like be on shuttle missions and things like that, and they were also with Mark at the Dulce base confrontation that he had. So, and a couple of the astronauts, 3 have died since that time, and 2 died in a shuttle accident, and I never thought that particular shuttle accident was a shuttle accident, and another one was killed or died in a car accident. So, a lot of people that he's worked with have died just to keep him quiet. Not that they probably would have ever talked, but a lot of people who were involved with him, especially in the Dulce thing, have not lived.
Wow, we're going to have to get into that a little bit tonight, too. And insofar as this battle of is it Vesta? Is that what you said?
Vesta.
Okay.
Yeah, there is an asteroid called Vesta.
Okay, and how was he wounded? Does he elaborate on that a little bit?
He probably does, and I haven't read it for a long time, so I need to read it again. But I know, his ship took a lot of hits, and I don't think there was hand-to-hand combat involved in that one, but I think his ship took a lot of hits, and he might have, I'm not sure if he was in his big ship when he got wounded, or if he had, like, taken off in a short-range interceptor to do more, like, dogfight-type fighting. I think that's probably what he did, because I shouldn't say he likes doing that, but, he's got to be in the forefront. He's always, he's a commander. He's always on the front line. So I'm pretty sure he was probably in a smaller ship for the little not the little battle, but the battle where he was wounded. So.
Wow, that's fascinating. So that's going to be interesting when it comes out. So, yeah. And what's the other ones that he's working on?
The other one is a book, and I don't know a lot about it yet. He sent me a couple of pages, and I couldn't find them today. But it's about bases and UFO sightings in Africa, especially like Central Africa, because I know the reptoids, which are human-looking, and you can't see their tails and whatever, and they work with the New World Order. They've had at least one big base there for quite a long time, and so that should be pretty fascinating. The couple pages of the excerpts that he sent me that I did read are fascinating. It's like, whoa. And he, and the reptoids are notorious for working with New World Order types and terrorists and things. So, if you want to jump into the crap, they do wreak havoc, and I am convinced that they're highly involved with what's happening in the Middle East today.
It sounds like it's it's all connected in some form or design. I was going to ask you about his contacts. Now, when he gets information, does he have the elemental contacts? Is that what you've referenced before?
He does have daily contact with elementals, and I don't know who his intelligence contacts are currently, but I know he is in contact with somebody that's still active, maybe more than one somebody who is still active and who knows, what's going on.
Right. And what method of communication is it? Is it telepathic, or how does that work?
I don't know.
Okay.
Some of it could be,
I have to ask.
I know, and I don't know, and it's nothing. He doesn't tell me.
Okay, that's all right. I know.
I know. In years past, he could get. He often got not often, but he used to get letters that were sealed. By and you knew they were coming from the Pentagon. So. And so the prison people couldn't open them, which was pretty cool.
Right. And I asked you one question about Mark. Does he have implants by chance?
Implants?
Alien implants? Anything like that? Alien hardware inside?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Number one, he's just born brilliant. And, he is telepathic. He can communicate by ESP and things like that, and through the elementals. But I don't know that he has implants.
Okay.
He hasn't admitted that he does. If he, I don't know.
Right. Well, Okay.
But he's been around the Raptors a lot, so we just tease him. He's very raptorish.
Oh, that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, no.
Yeah, he'll start morphing soon enough. So how is his situation? Oh, go ahead.
No, what you're going to say? No, it's nothing about morphing or changing. He never looks reptilian. But,
that's good.
Yeah, no.
Well, how are things going with him over there? What's his current situation, and is there a possible parole?
No possible parole at this moment, because technically his sentence is life without parole. It's the prison situation itself is just bad. Mm-hmm. And he does have health issues, and they don't address them nearly as well as they should. So, he's getting older, and he's tired, but he's still, he probably walks and exercises way more than I do, and I don't work out that much. I take walks, but not, he has a morning routine to stay fit. He walks as much as he can, and he eats, well, I don't want to say he eats healthily, because they don't serve anything that's healthy there. Mm-hmm. But, he's not keeling over dead. He's not having a heart attack, so that's all good. Mm-hmm. I think some of the circulation issues that he's had in the past are under control. So, he's always going to have a blood pressure issue. So, mm-hmm. It's hot there where he is. It's only an hour away from here, but it gets a lot hotter because it's, closer to the Central Valley of California. So
mm-hmm. Exactly. How many years does it make now that he's been incarcerated?
This is, I think, 32 since his arrest.
Wow.
1982, yeah.
That's just horrible, I swear.
Yeah. And so officially 30 in state prison, but mm-hmm. 32 since his arrest, yeah.
My goodness. Yeah, and for those who don't know, I don't know if you want to give him a brief rundown insofar as why he was incarcerated.
Sure. The public story is that some kids that worked for him killed a guy here in Marin County and dumped the body, and it floated up. And they said Mark masterminded the whole thing because, number one, he wanted to take over Marin County, which was bogus because he was just writing a science fiction book. And number two, the guy that died had a car restoration business, and, they were going to sell the cars, and they were going to sell the tools, and blah, blah, blah. Well, they didn't do any of that. They were found with a bag of dope and money that they'd stolen from his house, but, they had a week before the body floated up, and no cars were sold, and no tools were sold, and Mark was probably pretty sure Mark was not in town the day the guy got killed. Mm-hmm. Right. He was off working, and they just and again, now that years have gone by and we've put a lot of pieces together, we're very sure that either the New World Order planned the whole thing, or they just used these kids, what they did, as a way to get Mark out of the New World Order's hair, and it's worked.
Right. Well, they certainly have. They, put people in jail or eliminate them completely. And especially, looking at his background and his father's background with Tesla and everything else, plus the Black Space Program, you can understand why certain people get taken away, so to speak. So it's just really sad when you think about it, and it's too bad that he's not able to be free. It's unfortunate that went in that route. Yeah,
it's not like he's missing out on a lot of the basics. He doesn't see his children. He doesn't see his grandchildren. I only get to see him for a few hours a week. He doesn't see his friends, and he's stuck in there, and, it's miserable. He's around people that, he probably wouldn't be, a lot of them he's become friends with, but, he doesn't, in his free life, it's not like he spent all his time with convicted felons.
No, not at all. It also probably alters the vibration a little bit in a negative fashion, I would suspect.
Yeah,
probably not the best energetically speaking. So, of course, that's probably part of the sabotage as well. And,
exactly.
Yeah. So what does he say about, if at all, does he say anything about the current worldly affairs? I know you said he was writing a book, but is there anything he's picking up on insofar as the pulse of America right now?
Well, sure. He feels like basically Obama. And because right now we talk a lot about the Middle East stuff because we're very concerned. Mm-hmm. And he feels like Obama is stalling and not giving the different groups over there that need help, like, for example, the Kurds and different Christian groups that are just basically sitting ducks to be slaughtered by ISIS. And I believe the reptoids are working with ISIS, so the ISIS human terrorists. But, so we are not, they need help. They need food. They need weapons so they can defend themselves. And we're not providing what they need. We're dragging our feet. I think Obama's thing is, well, we'll send people over to train their people. And I don't think that's happening very fast. But we're also not providing them with the weapons and the means that they could defend themselves.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's very disheartening. So.
Yeah, it's frustrating as all hell, especially on a global scale. And you can see it. It's all happening simultaneously, the false flags and this and that. I do think there is a huge, surfacing of evil. And however it's connected, whether it's through reptoids or whatever it is, there's definitely a vicious, evil force running rampant across this planet. And, I don't care how much light you descend into your own body. I mean, you cannot look away and not notice this. So my question to you also is do the reptoids have a connection to the jinn? Or do you know?
I don't know a lot about the jinn, and what I have heard is, because it's a term, it's not always a negative term.
Right.
So I don't know what else they have a connection to besides the New World Order. And Mark's written a little bit about the jinn, but I haven't studied it enough, and I know he's mentioned them recently in a light that it's not, it means different things to different people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense here. Well, it looks like a mass possession to me. That's my assessment anyway. Whatever is going on, they're all like acting psychotic as all hell. What is sad though is, and Mark stays on. He's got his finger on the pulse of, what's currently going on everywhere. He hears better news sources than I do. It's pretty crazy. But what was I going to say? Oh, because he just, said in a letter from this week, ISIS has taken over another big Syrian city, and Obama still refuses the help. It's like they're just letting them go right in. Well, it's a Trojan horse.
Okay, and here's, what was so sad is, he heard about a 21-year-old that was listed as the first American to die in the fight against ISIS, and they're saying he fell out of an Osprey helicopter that he thought was about to crash. But they don't. But we're probably, his family's probably never going to see his body. So, it's like, so what really killed him?
It's crazy. Well, it's sabotage, and honestly, it's we've got betrayal right here in the United States in D.C., and everybody knows it, and nobody's doing a darn thing about it, and it's frustrating as all hell. And if I had access to the black space program, I'd be taking those black triangles and hovering right over that freaking D.C., and I'd be saying, "Get out." So that's what I'd be doing.
I know. It's like, I half tease. It's not really tease. I go, Mark, can't somebody sit down and have a, no offense, people out there, but it's like, can't somebody just have a come to Jesus meeting with Obama?
Yeah, open a wormhole, anything, please.
It's like, somebody needs, or because I'm sure the military must be frustrated as all get out, because I'm sure they want to do more, and. It's so sad.
It's horrible. It's frustrating. And, I worry, well, not even worry, I'm concerned, let's put it that way, about a lot of things here in this country and also globally. I think that we're on a really bad track, and it's self-destruct, and hopefully we can turn it around, at least those of us who are running the light on a higher level of consciousness. But like I said, this thing is almost out of control. It's a runaway train. And so, with that correlating, I wanted to look back a little bit. I was so impressed with your presentations and lectures with the Philadelphia information on the Philadelphia experiment. This was from April, and I just wanted to kind of take a look back there a little bit and actually access that timeline with you. And if you remember things, because I know you had a lot you were reading from, but I found it so impressive that I wanted to share it with everybody tonight. And
I pulled a few of my notes out.
Oh, great. And, when I look at the Philadelphia experiment, that's one of my favorites, by the way. I'm always intrigued by it, and I look at it today, and I look at everything that they were accomplishing then with Tesla's work. and how it actually is a parallel bleed-through effect in the timeline now. So my question to you is what they did in the opening, insofar as the opening of different portals and dimensional gateways, so to speak, don't you think it has a huge impact on what's happening right now?
I'm sure it must, and I don't know all the technicalities about that, because what I find is interesting is, and number one, what I said in that talk, I don't know if you want me to kind of lay the foundation of what I said.
Oh, sure,
in that
absolutely.
Talk.
If you can,
okay.
that'd be great. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Well, what I kind of outlined, and that was probably the shortest talk of that conference or that workshop I did, was that Tesla had died in January of 43. Now, a few days before he died, Mark's dad and Mark's grandpa were called by him to his hotel room. He knew he was going to die, and they thought he was being paranoid yet again. And he wanted, the Richards men to promise to hide his notes and destroy his lab that he kept in the secret black notebooks. And they did that, and they were given guardianship of the secret black notebooks. So I'm sure that guardianship was passed down to Mark. I don't know where they are today. They're not at my house, so don't even try to come find them. I have nothing to do with them. But the other thing that I learned was that the Philadelphia experiment was a series of experiments that took place from 39 to 43, and the two that happened at the docks were just the two that most people know about. And let's see what else. The technology being developed involved research by scientists at Tuxedo Park, which was a think tank, and Mark's grandfather was involved with that, and so was Tesla. And Mark's dad got to go there and hear about this science and the projects they were talking about. And let's see, the other thing was the thing about the two ships. Well, let's see, June of 1943, Mark's dad, and he still would have been a teenager by then, was on a secret submarine called the Sarkouf. Yes, I believe so. Yes, they headed to Japan, and the Japanese had a battleship called the Mutsu, and they went snuck into the bay stealthily, and they were using a Tesla weapon, and they sunk the battleship. If they hadn't have sunk that, anyway, it would have caused us great problems, and the war probably wouldn't have turned around. Mm-hmm. And then in November of 1943, the USS Iowa, that I used to be involved with, was secretly transporting FDR to a meeting in Cairo with, I think, Stalin and Churchill. And they were worried about being attacked by a German ship called the Tirpitz. Well, while they were underway, they were actually betrayed, I think, by some of our own people, but the ship phased out to avoid a torpedo shot that was shot from one of our ships because there was an assassination attempt on the president, and the ship had Tesla equipment on it. Mm-hmm. And when I was working with a nonprofit group that was trying to get custodianship of the ship, it was here in the Bay, the Northern California, San Francisco Bay Area, and I never got to go on it. And I'm sure they've removed all that Tesla equipment years and years ago. But I know that the ship finally got awarded to somebody else, and it's now down in I think it's San Diego, but it could be LA. I forget who has it, but I think it's San Diego. So one of these days, I'm actually going to go and get on it. Mm-hmm. The other interesting thing is the two times, the big experiments at the dock that we hear about when the ship phased in and out and people's bodies, were kind of stuck. Oh, here we go. The goal of the technology was to cloak the naval ships, but it took so much energy that it actually caused a temporary dimensional shift. Mm-hmm. So they stayed in the same place while the solar system moved past the ship, at least in one of them, and it didn't always come back to the same spot. So one time it just bounced out to a different part in the ocean. Another time when it actually landed in the American Southwest in 1978.
Oh, that's interesting.
My husband and others in the military were standing there waiting for it.
That's a trip.
It is such a trip. And they had to send it back to 1943. or whatever. I guess that was 1943. They had to send it back to the, Philadelphia. It's like, you did what?
So how did they do that?
I don't know. This is one of those time travel dimensional things he hasn't explained to me yet.
Okay, well, I think I know how it works, but anyway.
Yeah, it's like amazing. It's amazing. So, it's like, and it has to do with the time travel, and
right.
he understands that, and he won't really talk about it. But I know, obviously, he was involved with it because he's admitted that much. And Tesla was involved with time travel, so that's all has to have something to do with today. I mean, that was, from 1943 to zip into 1978 and then go. Like, oh.
Right. What are the repercussions of doing that, though? That my question would be, what's the bleed-through effect?
I don't know if that effect, I don't know if that was part of the timeline they were on at the time, or if that was going to screw up the timeline, or, because I know there's different timelines, and if you go to one and come back, you don't quite come back the same way, and again, I'm not real. This is not my area of expertise, but it's just you have to be careful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Switching timelines, and you just have to be careful.
Well, it's interesting because if I'm not mistaken, I think they were using that technology to cloak the radar, but it's all about frequency. I know that much, and actually the frequency and the vibrational speed and frequency would alter the pattern and actually rearrange everything on a molecular level. So I do know the mechanics behind it myself, but it's fascinating to me insofar as what they were doing. But my question would be, I have a sense that there's been a lot of tampering throughout the decades with these programs and this technology that got into the wrong hands to a point where I think that there's what we're experiencing today, this is my own theory, is literally a bleed-through and an effect of what they've created in alternate realities with this type of technology and the misuse and abuse of. Now, you might want to run that by Mark and ask him, but something's wrong here in our continuum. Yeah. And I don't think it's just one thing. I think it has something to do with the misuse of technology that got into the wrong hands. That's my own impression, anyway.
What's interesting is Sean David Morton gave a copy of his Sands of Time book to me, and I just started reading it. But he also was gracious enough to send Mark a copy, and Mark he might be done with it by now, but he was fascinated with it and said it was just incredible. And even though Sean wrote it as a fiction, it's so right on so many levels. And Mark knows a lot about the Philadelphia experiment, but he said there's some things in there that Sean, included in his book that Mark was new to him. It's like, oh, really?
Yeah, I think Sean cloaked that book, though. I mean, it's based on, supposedly.
It's based on true stuff, and he's changed some names, and he may have, turned things, I don't know if he turned things around a little bit, but yeah, I mean, he made it into a fictional story, but it's funny because Mark was saying, there's guys in there who sound so much like my dad. It's like, really? And
wow.
And where the scientist in the book, he goes back to where Montauk is and starts working with this other guy and this other scientist. It's like, oh my God. So I haven't gotten very far into it. Mark's a lot farther than I am, but once he started telling me how fascinating it was and how much it reminded him of his dad and maybe his grandpa, but and people he knew when he was growing up who were involved with all this, secret stuff. And he goes, it reminds me of so many of those guys. So
right. Mark doesn't seem to have screen memories, does he?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah.
No, I mean, I know when he was a kid, when he was at the one Interstellar Treaty Conference, they tried to do a mind wash, and they did a pretty good job, so he couldn't remember most of what happened for several years. But you can't really you can't mind control him, and you can't brainwash him, and he's able to fight that, and you can't hypnotize him. And no, I'm sure he doesn't have screen memory.
Right. He strikes me as solid, and his recall is excellent.
Yeah.
And that's unusual because people who are compromised don't have that kind of recall usually.
No, I mean, the only thing, and basically what he has us outsiders research for him is basically because he can remember what happened, and he can remember what the people look like, and he can remember who they are. He doesn't necessarily know their biography and where they went to college and their dates or certain dates. He'll remember, like what I said, what things happened, but he won't necessarily remember a date because that's a lot of dates to remember.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
So a lot of us research that kind of stuff, or if he's talking about a specific place that might have been involved with, either his background or a military thing, I'll go look up the history of that castle or that manor or this cool house where the Raptors stayed, or whatever. But so that's pretty cool. But it's usually he remembers or he has access. It's not. And the other thing is, because somebody else who's buying some reports recently, it's like, he goes, how does he remember all that? Or how he's amazed at how much information Mark has. And, Mark has a great memory, but sometimes, he wasn't everywhere. But he has had the blessing of having access to people's military reports, logs from Raptor spaceships or transcripts from, offices that have been bugged by intelligence people. So he's had access to high-level, information that most people wouldn't have had access to. So it's not like he's making stuff up to fill in the cracks. Mm-hmm. He's not making up conversations because they would have had an office bug, and he knew exactly what they said.
Right.
He didn't have to be there,
mm-hmm.
but it is really impressive how much stuff he's got stored in all that gray matter.
Well, it's excellent that he's had those experiences. Not many people get to participate with this side of this universe that we exist in. So, and my question to you is obviously the Royal House is involved in all of this. What about the people here in D.C. and presidents? Which ones have access and which ones don't, do you think?
Presidents, meaning past presidents or current presidents?
Well, both, actually.
I know Kennedy knew fully aware. He was fully aware of what was going on. Obviously, he couldn't admit that, and that's why he was killed, because he probably was about to disclose something. And presidents, because things have been happening for a long, long time. So I'm sure Teddy Roosevelt knew about the aliens. I'm sure all the presidents knew something along the way, because even in the 40s, there was an alien problem down in the Southwest, an alien and Nazi problem in the Southwest that Mark's dad as a teenager had to go help deal with it because his dad couldn't, and if the president would have known about that. So,
yeah, that's very interesting.
So I think the presidents, certainly Carter knew. Carter, he's been quoted as saying, he's seen UFOs, and Reagan certainly knew, and I'm sure the Bushes knew, but they're New World Order, so they certainly weren't going to help.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. And I'm sure that Obama knows a lot, and he's probably sat in on meetings where non-humans have been at. He's not going to disclose anything either.
Yeah, I still think he's kind of programmed and lost, though. My sense is he's kind of not really together there. But let me ask you something here.
Thank you for the word you just used.
Well,
programmed.
I'll take the hit. I'll take the bullet.
No. Mark and I were talking about the president last week, and it's like, interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah. Makes me want to be in a wormhole to another universe right now. I tell you what.
I know.
Yeah, and speaking of which, so why is it we can't merge the Black Space program here with this timeline and just get everybody up to speed and keep ascending with technology and morals and work the good fight?
Well, these are tough questions.
I know. What's your impression anyway?
Well, because the love and light is one thing, and that is wonderful. And I love that I love that side of this, and I love to talk about the spirituality that I know that some species embrace. Because they do, and they're very philosophical and very spiritual, but yet they come across as, they're warriors. Mm-hmm. And they are, and they have sharp claws and sharp teeth, and they use them. Mm-hmm. Most of the information I have is military. So most of the stuff Mark writes about and we talk about isn't necessarily about the love and light ascending stuff. Mm-hmm. There are different species who want to help protect the planet and do so militarily. And there's, we've talked a lot before, there are some species who are out there just kind of as UN watchers and peacekeepers. And I don't know if it came down to it, if they would act militarily or not. But they are trying to enforce treaties and whatever if certain species maybe get too close. I don't know how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of treaties in place, and there's a lot of treaties that are broken. And
it sounds like it's a little.
I don't know how we merged the timelines. But the good news is when Carrie Cassidy was visiting Mark, when we went to visit him in July, and we had this 4-hour window of nonstop talking, he was telling her that the Empress, the Rapture Empress, totally believes that and knows, like, on several timelines, the best way to deal with us humans, at least the ones that will are willing to work with her like we are, they see it, that works out for us to work together. I mean, yes, militarily, and that's going to be violent sometimes, but at least, I mean, that's even though it's militarily and violent and combat, at least that is a positive thing in my head, because she sees that it's in their best interest to work with us as opposed to just come invade and eat us,
mm-hmm.
Because they could, but she doesn't want to. So I know that's not exactly answering your question.
That's okay.
But I still see that as a positive thing. And no, that doesn't mean they're going to land on the White House lawn and go have tea with the president. But I was teasing Mark again. I go, well, why can't the Empress just go in and have a meeting with the president, and tell him what's what? It's like, no, yeah, that's wouldn't, she doesn't want to do that.
That's interesting. Well, let me ask you this. Tesla's death ray, the technology associated, now obviously that was created to deflect or protect from what?
That's a good question. I don't know a lot about that either. I know that Mark's dad, as a teenager, got to test it.
Cool.
Yeah, he, one of his summer jobs, basically, he would go spend summers with, like you said, with these cool scientists, and he would spend summers with Tesla, and his job was to test the equipment and test these new things he was coming out with. And it's like, what a cool summer vacation.
Yeah, no kidding. I would have. Oh, he's one of my favorites, Tesla is. So
yeah.
What is Mark's memory of Tesla? Does he ever share that with you?
No. Well, yes and no. I mean, he's written about him. He could probably write a lot more, and I'm sure in the early years, the pages of his family history manuscript, there's probably a lot more about Tesla in there, because, like I said, both of his grandfathers were involved with Tesla on different projects. But Mark knows enough about him and has probably read what's in those black books. He goes, I could give like a graduate level seminar on the guy and what his stuff was all about. He hasn't shared all that with me. I get snippets, and especially if I'm going to use it in a talk or something. Mm-hmm. And I have some other good quotes that I used in the Philadelphia experiment talk, but I couldn't pull those out and find those today.
Oh,
either.
That's okay. Yeah, no, you're doing fine, and I appreciate it. And so far as that, you mentioned the Japanese Mutsu. Was it Mutsu warship?
Mutsu. Yeah, MUTSU.
Okay.
It was a Nagato-class dreadnought with 16-inch guns. She took part in the attack on Pearl Harbor, sailed with the Yamato during the Battle of Midway in June of 1942, and her guns would have been a real problem for any American ship. So I think had they not gone in and sunk her, again, I don't think, I think that really would have, we wouldn't have won that would have, what am I saying? That would have made things a lot worse for us, and we might not have won the war against Japan had we not sunk her. And you can go online, because I've gone online and see what's interesting is, and I can't remember what the official story is, because she sunk right in their harbor. And there are pictures of her, because her back end is it's twisted. The weird thing is, if it had just been an explosion, it would have looked a lot differently. But the whole back end was it was cut off, and it's twisted away from the ship. Mm-hmm. So it's not like a normal explosion. It's not like a normal torpedo, and it's so weird because of this Tesla weapon they were testing.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay. Energy type weapon, and it just kind of, you know.
Interesting. So it was like a particle beam weapon of some kind?
Again, you know, I'm not sure. I'm assuming it was kind of some kind of energy type weapon.
Okay.
Or particle
was it deployed through what was I going to say? A torpedo? Was it a particle beam type weapon that was deployed through a torpedo?
I don't know that they shot a torpedo at it, or if it was just. I'd have to go back.
That's
and look
okay.
at
I'm just curious. If you ever find out, let me know.
I will. Yeah.
I find it very interesting. That's pretty. I don't know, all this stuff when they're deploying this type of technology, and of course it gets covered up. I like to look in and see, because obviously Tesla did something for a reason. He created and developed this technology, and you can't tell me they haven't been using it. I'm not buying it. We obviously use it for so many different things that we know about the radar and this and that, but literally for the black programs,
Right. So, and I'm sure we have used several of his things throughout the years, and you know, and again too, he was communicating openly with aliens, you know, from early on, and it's like, ooh, how cool is that?
Yeah, everyone says he is an alien. Notice how I say is.
I don't know about that. You know, it doesn't really matter to me whether he is or not.
Well, we are too. You know, that's the thing. Everybody wants to say we're human. We're not. We're celestial beings in suits. We wander this earth. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's very, very interesting. He would have been one of the people I would have liked to have talked to on this timeline or on this planet for sure. So what a blessing for Mark.
Oh, I know. It's it's cool. And like you would like to talk to Tesla. I would love to talk to. There's two wonderful cat species he's talked about. You know, the one he met in space with the Vesta thing. They're really cool. And there's a few here on Earth. And then there's a cool panther-looking cat species that are basically scientists and archaeologists. And one of their contestants that he became good friends with, it's like, you know, she sounds so cool, and she comes to Earth and does like archaeology digs, and she's looking for evidence of her species being here. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like, I want to meet her.
Well, that's interesting. Well, you know, I hear a lot of people talk about the cat people.
Yeah, there's several different species, and so I don't know, because like the Sekhmet being or goddess or whatever, you know, she has a lioness type head, I believe, and then I don't think her whole body looks like a cat. The Contessa Leona definitely looks like a tall cat, but they walk upright. I mean, they have tails, they bear litters of kittens, and they look like cats. If you saw them walking from a distance, and especially if they were wearing like a hooded cloak, they could look very human from a distance, because when they're walking towards you up on 2 feet upright, they look rather human, but they still have a tail and have fur, and they're big kitties.
That's fascinating. So you think they're do you think that the cats here on this world are an offshoot of the cat people?
Well, that particular cat species came. I'm sure she's told me where they're from. I'm not sure. They are from another place. They just come here every now and then. I don't know how often they come here. I don't know if they have a base here. I don't think he's ever really mentioned them having a base. He just in different. Let me see. In 1971, I think is when he met her, and she was here on an archaeology dig, and it was like right at the time of the Iran Interstellar Treaty Conference. And then the following winter, she was invited to Naga's winter vacation up in Scotland, where he'd invited several different species that were friends with him. So, so Mark saw her again then. And I'm sure he's seen her over the years, but I don't really know where she's from.
So does she have a ship, or do they get here by teleportation or phase shifting?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, I'll have to ask him.
Okay, let me know. Send me an email.
Yeah, Tesla Leona.
I'm curious how they navigate.
And again, a lot of species, because the teleportation thing, if it's like the Beam Me Up Scotty in Star Trek, that's a rearrangement of molecules, and a lot of things, you know, that's not great to use except for like inanimate objects, because you know Mark won't do that technology, because when you're rearranging your atoms, you don't reappear as the same person. It's different than traveling through a dimensional portal. He's done that a lot, but he won't do the Beam Me Up Scotty stuff.
Right. Does he describe the dimensional portals and how they access these gateways?
Some dimensional portals attach to a wormhole. Okay. I don't know that they all do. So if they're not attached, well, I'm assuming they must be attached if you're going to travel somewhere. He had one of his reports. He described traveling through a wormhole, and he was in a ship. It's like a combination of steel wool and ants on you. Mm-hmm. So it's a really weird, probably a very electrical feeling. Mm-hmm. But again, he was inside his Minerva ship, but and he doesn't talk much about going through wormholes, but I know he's done it a number of times.
Does the ship open the wormhole? I don't know if you know that or not.
Well, that's a twofold answer, because number one, she can open wormholes, or she can create them herself, and she'll jump around using them all the time. But the particular report he wrote that about was there were two huge dimensional gates that had opened up. The aliens. There were trogs, and I don't know who else was coming in to invade. Maybe raptors, but I'm not sure. There were some species that were coming in July of 1976 to invade Earth. Two dimensional gates had opened up over China, and Mark was in charge of the air battle to, fight them back or whatever. Mm-hmm. And he and Naga, in each of their ships, they went through each of the portals, and they had antimatter weapons on their ship. So as they went through, they released an antimatter bomb, or whatever you want to call it, that imploded and destroyed the wormhole, and it also destroyed the ships that were waiting outside the wormhole full of human victims. So unfortunately, thousands of people died. But then they shot through those portals and went through a wormhole to somewhere else that he won't tell me, collected some weapons they needed to go back down to the South Pole to help his dad, who was dealing with some nasty aliens. So,
wow. Yeah. So who created Minerva?
Oh, an ancient species. He won't really tell me that.
Damn it.
Oh. I know. There are other, some of the raptors, or I think some of the raptors have called her part of a seeker species. I don't know if that's really the name, maybe that's their nickname for the species, but a very ancient civilization. I don't know if they're still alive or not. Minerva and a few others like her used to have crews on them, and they had come, they were, I don't know what they were doing. I don't know what their missions were, but their crews had died off. They were left floating around for, I don't know if it was thousands of years. It could have been hundreds of years. A couple of them crashed. I think a couple of them crashed here on Earth. She definitely crashed. And I don't know when that happened, and I don't know who found her, but, we obviously took possession of her. And then Mark was the only human she's ever allowed to fly her.
Wow, interesting. And that's more of a symbiotic relationship?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if he actually had to wear a headset, but it's totally a telepathic not mind control, but it's a total...
Interface, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Very cool. Well, where's the craft now?
Hiding.
Well, can he get his craft and just get out of there? That's what I'd be doing.
Well, it's funny because I think, I think he used to have something on his wrist where he could push a button and call her. He doesn't have that now.
I want a ship like that. Would you tell him to get me one?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
I don't know where she is. She's definitely hiding. The problem is, again, if she came to get him, or if one of his alien friends came to get him, we'd never see him again. He'd have to go hide, or he'd always be on the run, or he'd have to go off planet. Mm-hmm. And, I'm not sure I'm ready to go off planet with him, because I couldn't take all the grandchildren with me.
Are you sure? You can't take your family?
I'm not sure. I don't know that they'd want to go.
Yeah, I would go.
I haven't really talked this over with my daughter.
You might want to discuss that. No.
But he's got lots of children, and I don't think they'd all want to leave this life behind. I just don't know.
That's fascinating.
But he, the other thing is, he doesn't want to leave his family behind, and he doesn't want to be on the run either. He doesn't want to have to run and hide and be fighting and, looking over his shoulder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't blame him at all. So let me ask you this: without him doing this type of defense work, who's actually taking care of his job now?
Well,